What if you suddenly woke up in America 150 years ago? No smartphones, no electricity, no highways, only horse carriages, steam trains, dusty streets, and people struggling to survive in a rapidly changing world. So sit back and travel with us into the past as we uncover rare photographs that reveal what America truly looked like over 100 years ago. This incredible photograph captures a massive group of American laborers during the late 1800s, standing proudly beside heavy industrial machinery. These were the men who helped build the backbone of modern America: railroads, mines, and factories. Notice the rough clothing, wide-brim hats, and exhausted faces. Life back then was brutally hard, but these workers carried the nation into the industrial age. This powerful image shows railroad workers laying tracks across the harsh American desert during the late 1800s. At the time, railroads were transforming the United States, connecting distant towns and fueling economic growth. Workers endured extreme heat, dangerous conditions, and exhausting labor. These tracks helped turn America into an industrial superpower and open the West to rapid expansion. This remarkable photo captures a historic railroad gathering in 1800s America, likely during the expansion of the Transcontinental Railway. Hundreds of workers, businessmen, and local citizens crowded around a steam locomotive to witness history in the making. Railroads changed everything. They connected the country, boosted trade, and transformed isolated frontier lands into growing American towns. This haunting photograph takes us deep inside an American mine during the late 1800s. Covered in dust and surrounded by dangerous machinery, these miners worked long hours underground for very little pay. Mining was one of the deadliest jobs in America at the time. Every shift meant risking collapse, explosions, and toxic air just to survive and provide for their families. This fascinating photograph shows one of America's earliest steam-powered trains from the 1800s. Before automobiles and airplanes, rail travel was revolutionary. Wealthy passengers rode in open carriages while thick smoke poured from the engine across the countryside. These primitive locomotives changed transportation forever, shrinking distances and helping America expand faster than ever before. This breathtaking image captures a steam locomotive crossing a snowy railroad bridge somewhere in the American West during the late 1800s. Surrounded by rugged mountains and freezing wilderness, railroad workers pushed through brutal winters to expand the nation's rail network. These railroads brought settlers, trade, and industry into some of the most remote parts of America. This touching portrait shows two African-American children from the late 1800s, a time when racial segregation and discrimination were deeply rooted in American society. Their serious expressions reflect the hardships many Black families faced after slavery ended. Despite poverty and inequality, families like theirs fought to build better lives during one of America's most difficult eras. This emotional photograph shows a group of immigrant families arriving in America during the early 1900s, likely through a major entry point such as Ellis Island. Many came from Europe searching for safety, jobs, and a better future. Notice the tired faces, worn clothing, and children standing close to their mothers, symbols of hope mixed with uncertainty in a new land. This striking photograph shows rows of factory workers inside an enormous American industrial plant during the early 1900s. The long hours, crowded conditions, and exhausting labor defined factory life during America's industrial boom. Many workers were immigrants or poor laborers who sacrificed their health and freedom to keep the nation's factories running day and night. This deeply emotional photograph captures an immigrant mother holding her child shortly after arriving in America during the early 1900s. Sitting behind a metal barrier, she appears exhausted yet hopeful. Millions of immigrants pass through crowded processing centers like Ellis Island, carrying little more than dreams of safety, opportunity, and a better future for their children. This rare photograph shows a group of American industrial workers posing outside a factory in the late 1800s. Their worn clothes, tired expressions, and rough hands reveal the harsh reality of working-class life during America's industrial rise. Most laborers worked exhausting shifts for low wages, yet their hard work helped build the factories, railroads, and cities of modern America. This beautiful family portrait from 1800s America offers a rare glimpse into upper-class life during the Victorian era. Notice the formal clothing, carefully styled hair, and serious expressions. Photography was expensive, so portraits like this were treasured family memories. At the time, families often sat perfectly still for long exposures, making every photograph feel timeless and deeply personal. This powerful portrait captures an elderly Native American woman holding a young child, likely her grandchild, in the early 1900s. The deep wrinkles on her face tell stories of survival, hardship, and cultural change. During this era, Native American communities were being pushed from their lands, yet families continued preserving traditions, identity, and strength across generations. This eerie photograph shows a quiet American frontier town during the late 1800s. Wooden buildings, dusty streets, and horse-drawn carriages were common sights across the Wild West. Places like this were often isolated and lawless, where saloons, churches, and general stores stood side by side. It was a harsh but defining chapter in America's expansion westward. This fascinating image takes us inside a crowded saloon or gathering hall, somewhere in the American West during the late 1800s. Men in cowboy hats sit around tables, while others relax near the stove, escaping the harsh frontier life outside. Places like this were the social heart of Western towns, where travelers, gamblers, workers, and outlaws all crossed paths. This rare photograph shows an American cavalry soldier standing beside his horse during the late 1800s, likely somewhere in the Western frontier. Horses were essential for travel, military patrols, and survival across the rugged landscape. The soldier's worn uniform and confident expression reflect the harsh realities of frontier life, where long journeys and dangerous conditions were part of everyday existence. This detailed street scene shows an American city during the mid to late 1800s, long before automobiles or skyscrapers dominated the landscape. Horse-drawn carriages moved through crowded dirt roads, while people in formal clothing walked between government buildings, shops, and markets. Cities like this were rapidly growing as America expanded economically, politically, and socially during the Industrial Age. These two rare photographs capture everyday life in 1800s America from very different worlds. On the left, women stand proudly outside a peaceful family home, dressed in formal Victorian clothing. On the right, rugged men gather outside a remote mountain lodge deep in the wilderness. Together, these images reveal the contrast between settled family life and the rough frontier spirit that shaped early America. This incredible photograph shows a covered wagon traveling through an American town during the westward expansion of the 1800s. Pulled by horses and even a powerful ox, wagons like these carried families, supplies, and dreams across dangerous frontier lands. Before railroads reached every region, covered wagons were symbols of survival, migration, and America's relentless push toward the West. This rare Civil War-era photograph shows military medics carrying a wounded soldier across a battlefield stretcher in the late 1800s. The Red Cross armbands identify them as medical personnel risking their lives to save injured troops. During America's wars, battlefield medicine was primitive and dangerous, and thousands of soldiers died not only from combat, but from infection and untreated wounds. This powerful photograph captures a pioneer family during America's westward expansion in the 1800s. Standing beside a covered wagon pulled by horses, they appear to be traveling across the open frontier in search of land, opportunity, and a new life. Families like these endured extreme weather, hunger, disease, and isolation while helping settle the American West. This striking portrait shows a rough group of young American frontiersmen from the mid-1800s, likely miners, cowboys, or Western laborers. Their rugged clothing, intense expressions, and weathered appearance reflect the unforgiving life of the American frontier. In those days, survival demanded toughness, and groups like this helped shape the wild, dangerous, and rapidly expanding American West. This touching photograph captures a young American boy quietly reading a comic book sometime in the early to mid-1900s. Unlike the harsh frontier images of earlier generations, this scene reflects a changing America where childhood slowly became more peaceful and comfortable. His curious expression and relaxed surroundings reveal how books, comics, and storytelling became an important part of growing up in modern American life. This heartbreaking photograph shows young children working inside an American factory during the early 1900s. Instead of attending school or playing outside, many poor children were forced to work long hours around dangerous industrial machines for very little money. Child labor was common during America's industrial boom, exposing children to exhaustion, injuries, and harsh working conditions at a very young age. This fascinating photograph shows an American classroom from the early 1900s, a time when education was becoming more organized and widespread across the country. Students sit quietly at wooden desks while the teacher lectures beside maps and a chalkboard. Unlike today's digital classrooms, learning back then relied heavily on discipline, memorization, handwritten notes, and strict classroom rules. This dramatic photograph shows utility workers high above the ground repairing electrical lines during the early 1900s. As electricity spread across America, men like these risked their lives climbing dangerous poles with very limited safety equipment. Their work helped power homes, businesses, and entire cities, bringing America into the modern electrical age for the very first time. This peaceful rural scene captures everyday farm life in America before modern machinery transformed the countryside. Horses were essential for transportation, farming, and survival, while families worked together from sunrise to sunset. Chickens wandered freely through the yard, and nearly everything people needed came from their own land. It was a slower, harder, but deeply connected way of life. This fascinating photo captures a rare moment where old and new worlds existed side by side. The horse-drawn carriage represents the traditional way people traveled for centuries, while the automobile in the background hints at the arrival of a modern age. During the early 1900s, scenes like this were common in American cities as society slowly transitioned from horses to motor vehicles. It was a time of massive technological change, yet many people still relied on horses for daily transportation. This crowded street scene feels like stepping directly into the heart of a busy 19th or early 20th century city. The narrow road is packed with market stalls, horse-drawn wagons, merchants, and hundreds of people moving through the streets. Before modern traffic and skyscrapers took over, cities were filled with open-air markets like this, where people bought food, clothing, and daily necessities face-to-face. Every corner of the image reflects the energy, chaos, and human connection of urban life during that era. This remarkable photograph shows a bustling public market from the late 1800s or early 1900s, likely serving as the center of daily life in the city. Long before supermarkets existed, people came to crowded marketplaces like this to buy fresh vegetables, meat, and household goods. Horse carts moved through the streets while vendors called out to customers under large covered stalls. The scene perfectly captures the noise, movement, and energy of urban life during a time when markets were the heartbeat of every growing American city. This incredible photograph captures the overwhelming energy of a crowded city street during the early 1900s. The road is packed with pedestrians, street vendors, horse-drawn wagons, and small market stalls stretching far into the distance. At that time, cities were growing rapidly due to immigration and industrialization, turning streets like these into busy centers of trade and daily survival. Every person in the image seems to be moving with purpose, creating a powerful glimpse into the fast-paced urban life of the past. This striking photograph captures a fascinating transition period in urban transportation. In the center, a horse-drawn streetcar moves along metal tracks, while beside it, an electric tram represents the future of city travel. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, many American cities briefly used both systems at the same time before electricity completely replaced horsepower transit. The foggy streets, crowded sidewalks, and towering buildings make this image feel like a living snapshot of a rapidly modernizing world. This peaceful yet isolated landscape shows the rugged countryside of early America, long before highways, cities, and modern development transformed the land. Scattered rocks, dirt paths, and dense forests dominate the scene, while a small horse-drawn wagon in the distance reminds us how difficult travel once was. In those days, journeys across rural areas could take days or even weeks. Photographs like this reveal the raw, untamed beauty that many early settlers and travelers experienced during the expansion of the American frontier. This powerful collection of portraits likely shows soldiers from the American Civil War era, a conflict that forever changed the history of the United States. Each face tells a different story: young men leaving home, facing fear, hardship, and the uncertainty of war. Their uniforms, weapons, and serious expressions reflect the brutal reality of 19th century battlefields, where thousands fought for causes they deeply believed in. These photographs are more than historical images. They are haunting reminders of the human cost of war and the lives forever shaped by it. This haunting portrait likely shows a frontier laborer or miner from the 1800s, holding the basic tools that built much of early America by hand. The shovel and pickaxe were symbols of hard physical work during an era of mining booms, railroad expansion, and Western settlement. His worn clothing, rough hat, and exhausted expression reflect the brutal conditions many workers endured while searching for survival and opportunity. Photographs like this remind us that behind America's rapid growth were ordinary laborers, whose difficult lives often went undocumented and forgotten. This powerful image appears to show a group of laborers or miners working at a rocky excavation site during the late 1800s or early 1900s. Surrounded by wooden beams, loose stone, and rough terrain, these men likely spent long, exhausting days digging, hauling, and building by hand with almost no modern machinery. Their hats, suspenders, and rugged clothing reflect the harsh working-class life of that era. Scenes like this capture the backbone of industrial expansion, ordinary workers whose dangerous labor helped build mines, railroads, roads, and growing American towns during a time of rapid change. This rare old photograph captures a quiet rural settlement from the late 1800s or early 1900s. The muddy dirt road, simple farmhouse buildings, wooden fences, and horse standing beside the man reveal how deeply people depended on farming and animals for daily life. The group posing for the camera likely represents a local family or small farming community. Their formal clothing suggests that having a photograph taken was still a special occasion during that era. Images like this offer a fascinating glimpse into early countryside life before paved roads, electricity, and modern transportation transformed rural America forever. This fascinating harbor photograph captures a busy coastal city during the late 1800s or early 1900s, when sea trade was the lifeline of major economies. Large steamships and sailing vessels filled the waterfront, transporting goods, immigrants, and raw materials across the world. The crowded rooftops, warehouses, and docks below reveal how rapidly industrial cities were expanding during this era. Smoke rising in the distance hints at factories and coal-powered transportation that defined the age. Before airplanes and highways dominated travel, ports like this were the true gateways connecting nations, commerce, and millions of people seeking new opportunities. This stunning aerial-style photograph shows a small American town during the late 1800s or early 1900s, surrounded by vast open farmland and empty countryside. The simple wooden homes, dirt crossroads, barns, and neatly divided fields reveal how closely communities depended on agriculture during this period. Unlike today's crowded cities, towns like this were quiet, slow-paced, and tightly connected, where nearly everyone knew each other. From this high viewpoint, you can clearly see the early stages of organized urban planning as settlements slowly expanded across rural America. Photos like this preserve the peaceful simplicity of life before highways, skyscrapers, and modern industry reshaped the landscape forever. This atmospheric old photograph captures a quiet residential street from the late 1800s or early 1900s. The horse-drawn carriage, wide empty road, and elegant wooden houses with porches reflect a time before automobiles transformed city life. Bare trees line the street, giving the scene a calm, almost frozen feeling, while people standing on porches and sidewalks reveal the slower pace of everyday life during that era. The architecture suggests a growing middle-class neighborhood where families live close to small local businesses and town centers. Images like this beautifully preserve the peaceful charm of early urban America before modern traffic, skyscrapers, and electric city lights changed everything. This breathtaking photograph captures the energy and transformation of a major American city during the early 1900s. Crowded sidewalks, electric streetcars, horse-drawn carriages, and towering commercial buildings reveal a world caught between the old and modern age. The ornate architecture and busy storefronts show how rapidly urban centers were growing during the industrial boom. Smoke rising from rooftops and factories reflects the non-stop activity that powered these cities day and night. Before automobiles fully dominated the streets, scenes like this represented the heartbeat of urban America, crowded, noisy, ambitious, and constantly expanding toward the future. This remarkable street photograph shows the chaos and energy of a thriving American city in the late 1800s. The cobblestone roads are packed with horse-drawn carriages, delivery wagons, street vendors, and crowds of pedestrians moving through busy commercial streets. Tall, narrow buildings with awnings and storefronts line both sides, reflecting the rapid growth of trade and urban business during the industrial era. Long before traffic lights and automobiles controlled city movement, streets like these depended entirely on horses and human coordination. The image perfectly captures a time when American cities were transforming into bustling economic centers filled with noise, commerce, and non-stop activity. This beautifully preserved photograph highlights the importance of horses in everyday transportation during the late 1800s and early 1900s. The strong, well-groomed horse stands proudly attached to a lightweight carriage outside an elegant wooden home, showing how horse-drawn travel was once a symbol of both practicality and social status. Before automobiles became common, families relied on horses for nearly everything traveling, delivering goods, and daily transportation through towns and countryside alike. The detailed harness and carriage design also reflect the craftsmanship of that era, when maintaining a healthy horse was just as important as owning a vehicle today. This striking harbor photograph captures the powerful age of steamships, when rivers and ports were the lifeline of trade and travel. Large paddle steamers and cargo boats crowd the waterfront, their tall smokestacks pouring dark smoke into the sky as workers load supplies and passengers prepare for long journeys. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, steam-powered ships transformed transportation by connecting distant cities much faster than traditional sailing vessels. The busy dockside scene also reveals how important waterways were before highways and airplanes dominated travel. Every ship here carried not only goods and people, but also the promise of industrial growth in a rapidly changing world. This fascinating image shows how horse-drawn carriages survived even in the modern automobile age. While cars and paved roads became common in cities, many people still used elegant carriages for tourism, ceremonies, and short-distance travel. The driver, dressed in traditional formal clothing, guides the horse through a busy urban street, creating a striking contrast between old-world transportation and modern city life. These carriages were once symbols of wealth and status before automobiles replaced them in everyday transportation. Today, scenes like this remind us of a slower, more graceful era when horses were an essential part of daily life and city culture. This remarkable photograph captures one of the early steam locomotives that transformed travel and industry forever. Before railways, long-distance journeys took days or even weeks by horse carriage. But steam trains dramatically reduced travel time and connected distant cities like never before. The massive iron engine, powered by coal and steam, symbolized the beginning of the Industrial Revolution's transportation boom. Passengers riding in these elegant rail cars experienced a new level of speed, comfort, and opportunity. For many people of that era, seeing a steam locomotive for the first time felt almost magical, a machine powerful enough to pull entire cities closer together and reshape the modern world. This powerful photograph captures gold prospectors searching riverbeds during the famous Gold Rush era. Armed with simple tools like pans, shovels, and wooden sluices, thousands of miners traveled into remote mountains, hoping to discover gold and change their lives forever. The work was exhausting, and dangerous men spent long hours standing in cold rivers, washing dirt and gravel to find tiny pieces of precious metal. While a few became wealthy, most miners faced hardship, poverty, and disappointment. Images like this reveal the harsh reality behind the dream of instant riches and show how the gold rush helped shape the expansion and development of the American West. This touching photograph shows a pioneer family standing outside their small log cabin on the American frontier. Families like these traveled into remote wilderness areas during the 1800s, building homes entirely by hand from logs, mud, and natural materials. Life on the frontier was extremely difficult. People faced harsh weather, isolation, disease, and limited food supplies. Every family member, including children, worked daily to survive by farming, cooking, sewing, and caring for animals. Despite the hardships, these settlers helped expand towns and communities across the American West. Images like this give us a rare glimpse into the courage, resilience, and simple lifestyle of early pioneer families. This fascinating photograph shows a busy, old-fashioned barbershop from the early 1900s, a time when barbershops were important social gathering places for men. Skilled barbers dressed in white uniforms carefully shaved customers with straight razors and trimmed hair by hand, long before electric clippers became common. Large mirrors, wooden barber chairs, and shelves filled with grooming products gave these shops a classy and elegant atmosphere. Men often visited not only for haircuts, but also to relax, talk about politics, business, and local news. Images like this reveal how everyday life once revolved around small community spaces where people connect direct connection to the rapidly changing modern world. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves history. And tell us in the comments, which photograph shocked you the most? Thanks for watching.